I met Sarah on a Tuesday in October when the city still felt warm, but the evenings had started to cool down. She was standing outside a coffee shop on the corner of 5th and Main, trying to light a cigarette that kept going out in the wind. I was walking past with my hands in my pockets, heading nowhere in particular, just wandering after another long day at work that had left me feeling empty and restless. When she looked up and asked if I had a lighter, her voice cut through the noise of the street. I didn't smoke, but I stopped anyway. "Sorry," I said, "I don't." She laughed a little, not at me, just at the situation. "Of course, the universe doesn't want me to have this." "Maybe the universe is looking out for you," I said. "Maybe," she said, and she dropped the cigarette into a trash can next to the bus stop. "Or maybe it just likes to mess with me." We stood there for a second longer than strangers usually do. She had dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, and she wore a gray sweater that looked too big for her, the sleeves hanging past her wrists. There was something about the way she looked at me, like she was deciding whether I was worth her time or just another face in the crowd. Her eyes were brown, deep and tired, like she'd been carrying something heavy for too long. "Do you want to get coffee?" she asked. I hadn't planned on it. I'd been planning on going home, microwaving something for dinner, and falling asleep in front of the television like I did most nights. But I said yes. We sat by the window, and she told me her name, Sarah. She worked as a graphic designer for a small agency downtown, the kind of place where everyone was overworked and underpaid, but pretended to love it anyway. She'd moved to the city 3 years ago from somewhere in the Midwest, a town I'd never heard of with a population of less than 5,000. She talked about her work like it was fine, but not what she'd dreamed of doing. She talked about her apartment like it was too small, but enough for now. I told her I worked in IT support for a financial company, which always sounds boring, and it was. I spent my days resetting passwords and explaining to people how to use basic software they should have figured out years ago. I told her I'd lived in the city my whole life, and sometimes I felt like I'd never really seen it, like I was just moving through it without ever stopping to notice anything. She said she knew what I meant. We finished our coffee, and when we stood to leave, she asked if I wanted to walk with her for a bit. She lived about 20 blocks north, she said, and she didn't feel like taking the subway yet. I did. We walked through the streets as the sun started to set, turning everything orange and soft. The city was alive around us, people rushing home from work, street vendors packing up their carts, cars honking at each other in the gridlock. We didn't talk much at first, just moved through the crowds and the noise, our shoulders occasionally brushing against each other. At one point, she stopped in front of a bookstore and pressed her face against the glass, looking at the display inside. There were stacks of novels arranged in a pyramid, classics mixed with new releases, and a hand-painted sign that said, "Fall into a good book." "I used to want to write," she said, her breath fogging up the glass. "What stopped you?" I asked. She shrugged, pulling back from the window. "Life, I guess, or fear. Probably both." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. We kept walking. When we reached her block, a quiet street lined with brownstones and old trees, she turned to me and smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from her all evening. "Thanks for walking with me. I know it was out of your way." "It wasn't," I lied. I lived on the opposite side of the city. "Do you mean that?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I nodded. She pulled a receipt from her bag and wrote her number on it with a pen she found at the bottom, her handwriting messy and slanted. Then she handed it to me, and our fingers touched for just a second. "Text me," she said. Then she disappeared into her building, and I stood there for a while, holding that piece of paper like it might blow away, wondering what had just happened and why it felt so important. I texted her the next day. We started seeing each other regularly after that. Coffee, walks, dinners at small restaurants where the tables were too close together and you could hear everyone else's conversations. She liked Thai food and old movies, the kind in black and white that made her cry even when they weren't particularly sad. She hated the subway, but took it everywhere anyway because she refused to spend money on cabs. She had a way of listening that made me feel like what I was saying actually mattered, even when I was just talking about my day or some article I'd read online. One night, about 3 weeks after we met, she had invited me over to watch a movie, something French she said I had to see. The apartment was small, like she'd said, but it felt warm. There were plants on the windowsill that she admitted she kept forgetting to water, books stacked on the floor because she didn't have enough shelves, and a blanket draped over the couch that looked like it had been there for years, faded and worn. We sat next to each other, not touching, watching the movie. I wasn't really paying attention. I kept thinking about how close she was, how I could feel the warmth coming off her skin, how if I just moved my hand a few inches, it would touch hers. The movie was about two people falling in love in Paris, or maybe falling out of love, I couldn't tell. The subtitles were going too fast. Halfway through the movie, she leaned her head on my shoulder. I didn't move. I barely breathed. I could smell her shampoo, something floral and clean, and feel the weight of her against me. When the movie ended, she sat up and looked at me. "What did you think?" I said, "It was good." She smiled, like she knew I hadn't been watching. Liar. I laughed, and she did too, and then we were just looking at each other in the dim light from the television, the screen now showing credits in French that neither of us could read. "I like having you here," she said quietly. "I like being here," I said. She kissed me then, soft and tentative, like she wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. Her lips were warm, and she tasted like the wine we'd been drinking. I kissed her back, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. It was just her mouth and her hands on my face and the sound of her breathing. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. "Stay," she whispered. I stayed. We fell into a rhythm after that. I'd go to her place after work, or she'd come to mine, though she preferred her apartment because, as she said, mine felt too sterile, too much like a hotel room. We'd cook dinner together, badly, burning things or under-seasoning them, and eat it on the couch while watching whatever was on. We'd talk about our days, about things that mattered and things that didn't. She'd tell me about the clients at work that drove her crazy, the ones who asked for 17 revisions and then went with the first draft. I'd tell her about my coworkers, about the guy in the cubicle next to me who ate tuna sandwiches every day.
We'd fall asleep together, tangled up in each other, and wake up in the morning like it was the most natural thing in the world. It felt easy with her, effortless. But there were moments when I could tell something was bothering her. She'd get quiet, distant, like she was somewhere else in her head. I'd ask her what was wrong, and she'd say it was nothing, just work or stress or tiredness. I believed her because I wanted to, because admitting that something was wrong meant admitting that this easy thing we had might not stay easy. About 2 months in, we were lying in bed one Sunday morning, the light coming through the window in long golden strips. She was tracing patterns on my chest with her finger, not saying anything, just thinking. "I was in a relationship before I moved here," she said finally. I didn't say anything, just waited for her to continue. "It ended badly," she said. "He cheated on me, multiple times actually, and he lied about it, made me feel like I was crazy for even suspecting anything. I found out from a friend. She saw him with another girl at a bar across town." "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't talk about it much," she said. "I don't like thinking about it, but I wanted you to know. I wanted you to understand why I am the way I am sometimes." "What way?" I asked. "Distant," she said, "scared, like I'm waiting for something bad to happen." I held her closer. "You don't have to be scared with me." I know, she said, or at least I'm trying to know. She cried a little that morning, quietly, her face pressed against my shoulder. I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. I just held her until she fell back asleep. Winter came fast that year. The city turned cold and gray, and the days got shorter, the sun setting before most people even left work. Sarah and I kept seeing each other, but something had shifted. She was still there, still warm and kind and present, but there was a part of her that felt far away, like she was standing behind glass. One Friday night in December, I went to her apartment after work. She'd texted me earlier, asking if I wanted to come over. It was snowing lightly, the first snow of the season, and the city looked almost beautiful under the white blanket. When I got there, she was sitting on the couch in the dark, still in her work clothes, staring at nothing. The only light came from the street lamp outside, casting long shadows across the room. "Hey," I said, closing the door behind me. "You okay?" She looked up at me, and I could see she'd been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy, her makeup smeared. "I got a call today," she said. I sat down next to her, my stomach already sinking. "From who?" "Him, my ex. He found out where I'm living. He wants to see me." I felt a surge of anger. "What did you say?" "I told him no," she said. "I told him to leave me alone. But he kept calling 5 times. I finally blocked his number, but I don't know if that's going to stop him." I reached for her hand, and she let me take it. Her fingers were cold. "He can't get to you," I said. "You're safe here." "I don't feel safe," she said. "I don't feel safe anywhere anymore." I didn't know what to say to that. I wanted to fix it, to make it better, but I didn't know how. So I just held her hand and let her cry. After a while, she wiped her eyes with the back of her robe and looked at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For dragging you into this, for being a mess. You didn't sign up for this." "You're not a mess," I said, "and I'm not going anywhere." She kissed me then, hard and desperate, like she was trying to prove something to herself, or to me, or to the universe. I kissed her back, and we ended up in her bedroom, pulling at each other's clothes, holding on to each other like we were drowning, and each other was the only thing keeping us afloat. Afterwards, we lay in the dark, her head on my chest, my hand in her hair. I could feel her heartbeat starting to slow down, her breathing evening out. "I don't want to lose you," she said quietly. "I won't," I said. But even as I said it, I could feel her slipping away. The weeks that followed were strange and difficult. She'd be fine one day, laughing and happy and present, making jokes and planning things for us to do, and the next she'd be distant, unreachable, like she was locked inside herself and couldn't find the way out. She stopped inviting me over as much. She'd cancel plans at the last minute, texting me that she was tired or didn't feel well or had to work late. When we did see each other, she seemed distracted, like she was only half there, her mind somewhere else entirely. I tried to give her space. I tried to be patient, to be understanding, to be whatever she needed. But it was hard, watching her pull away and not knowing how to stop it, or if I even should try. One night in January, after 3 days of not hearing from her, I went to her apartment unannounced. I'd sent her texts that had gone unanswered. I'd called twice and gotten voicemail. I was worried, genuinely worried that something had happened. When I got there, I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. I knocked again, louder this time, and finally I heard her voice from inside, muffled and tired. "Who is it?" "It's me," I said. There was a long pause, long enough that I thought she might not open the door, but then I heard the lock turn and the door open a crack. She was wearing a robe, dark blue and worn, tied loosely at the waist. Her hair was wet, like she'd just gotten out of the shower, and she looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days, her dark circles under her eyes. "What are you doing here?" she asked, not unkindly, just confused. "I was worried," I said. "You haven't answered my texts." "I'm fine," she said, but her voice said otherwise. "Can I come in?" She hesitated, her hand still on the door, and for a moment I thought she might not say no, but then she stepped aside and let me in. The apartment was a mess. There were dishes piled in the sink, some with food still on them, clothes scattered on the floor, half-empty glasses of water on every surface, some with dust floating on top. The plants on the windowsill looked like they were dying. It didn't look like her, like the person I knew who kept things neat and organized. "Sarah, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice gentle. "I don't know," she said. "I don't know what's wrong with me." "You don't have to do this alone," I said, taking a step towards her. "Whatever this is, we can figure it out together." She shook her head, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I don't want you to see me like this. I don't want you to think I'm broken." "I don't think you're broken. I think you're hurting, and I want to help." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something break in her eyes. She started crying, not just tears, but real sobs, and I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms. "I'm so tired," she said into my chest. "I'm so tired of feeling like this. I'm so tired of being scared all the time." "I know," I said, holding her tight. "I know." We stood there for a long time, holding each other in the middle of her messy apartment, and I wished more than anything that I could fix it, that I could take away whatever was hurting her and make everything okay. But I couldn't. All I could do was hold her and let her know she wasn't alone. After a while, she wiped her eyes with the back of her robe and looked at me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, for still being here." I kissed her top of her head. "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." Things got a little better after that. She started seeing a therapist, someone she found through her insurance who specialized in anxiety and past trauma. She told me it helped talking to someone who wasn't me, someone who could give her tools to deal with everything she was feeling. She still had bad days, days where she couldn't get out of bed or couldn't stop crying, but they were fewer. She started smiling more, laughing more. She started to feel like herself again. By February, we'd settled into something that felt solid. We talked about the future, vaguely, carefully, like we were afraid to jinx it. She mentioned maybe moving to a bigger apartment in the spring. I mentioned maybe getting a dog, a rescue, something small. We didn't make any concrete plans, but the fact that we were talking about it, that we were imagining a future together, felt like something real.
One Friday night, I was at home, finishing up some work I'd brought home from the office. My apartment was quiet, except for the hum of my laptop and the sound of traffic outside. I was tired, ready to close the computer and go to bed, when my phone rang. It was Sarah. "Hey," I said, answering immediately. "What's up?" "Can you come over?" she asked. There was something in her voice, something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't panic, but it wasn't calm either. It was something in between. "Now?" "Yeah," she said. "Please." I looked at the clock. It was almost 10. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. I grabbed my jacket and left, taking the stairs 2 at a time down to the street. The subway was running slow, as usual, and I spent the ride bouncing my leg, wondering what was wrong, if something had happened. When I got to her building, I buzzed her apartment. She didn't answer through the intercom, but the door unlocked. I took the stairs up to her floor, my heart pounding, and knocked on her door. It opened almost immediately. She was standing there in a robe, the same dark blue one from before, tied at the waist. Her hair was down, falling over her shoulders in dark waves, and she wasn't wearing any makeup. She looked beautiful. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Nervous, maybe? Determined. Vulnerable. "Come in," she said. I stepped inside and she closed the door behind me, the lock clicking into place. The apartment was dim, lit only by a few candles scattered around on the coffee table and the kitchen counter. There was music playing softly from her phone, something slow and instrumental that I didn't recognize. It felt intimate, intentional. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice coming out quieter than I intended. She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me,
her hands fidgeting with the belt of her robe, like she was working up the courage to say something. "I've been thinking," she said finally, "about us, about everything." My heart started to race. I didn't know where this was going, and the uncertainty was almost unbearable. "Okay," I said. "I don't want to be scared anymore," she said, her voice steady now. "I don't want to keep holding back. I don't want to keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Sarah!" She stepped closer, cutting me off. "I know I've been difficult. I know I've pushed you away, but you stayed. You stayed even when I gave you every reason to leave, even when I was a mess, even when I didn't deserve it." "You always deserved it," I said. "I stayed because I wanted to, because I care about you." "I know," she said, and she reached up and touched my face, her fingers soft against my skin. "And I care about you, more than I've cared about anyone in a long time, more than I thought I could care about anyone again." She took a breath, like she was about to jump off a cliff. "I don't want to waste any more time," she said. And then she let the robe fall. It slipped off her shoulders and pooled at her feet, and she stood there in front of me, completely vulnerable and exposed and beautiful in the candlelight. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could only stare at her, at the trust in her eyes, at the courage it must have taken to do this. "I'm not leaving tonight," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I don't want you to either." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if there was anything to say, so I just stepped forward and kissed her, wrapping my arms around her, pulling her close. She kissed me back, her hands coming up to tangle in my hair, and everything else fell away. We moved to her bedroom without breaking apart, stumbling a little, laughing softly against each other's mouths. And then we were on her bed, and it was different this time, slower, deeper, more intentional, like we had all the time in the world, like we were promising each other something without saying the words. I held her close, feeling her heartbeat against my chest, her breath on my neck, and she clung to me like I was the only solid thing in the room. Afterward, we lay in her bed, tangled up in the sheets, her head resting on my chest. The candles in the other room were still burning, casting faint dancing shadows on the walls. I could hear her breathing, feel the rise and fall of her chest. "I meant what I said. I'm not leaving," she whispered. "Good," I said, running my fingers through her hair, "because I don't want you to." She lifted her head and looked at me, her eyes searching mine in the darkness. "Do you think we can make this work? Really work?" I thought about everything we'd been through, the good days and the bad ones, the times she'd pushed me away and the times she'd let me in, the fear and the hope and everything in between. "I think we already are," I said. She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made everything feel worth it. All the uncertainty, all the fear, all the nights spent wondering if we'd make it to the next day. It was all worth it for this moment, for the look in her eyes, for the feeling of her in my arms. We fell asleep like that, holding each other, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like everything was exactly where it needed to be. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. Sarah was in the kitchen, wearing my t-shirt, which hung down to her thighs, and humming to herself as she poured 2 cups. She looked peaceful, content, like a weight had been lifted. "Morning," she said when she saw me standing in the doorway watching her. "Morning," I said. She handed me a cup, and we sat on the couch together, not saying much, just drinking our coffee and watching the city wake up outside her window. People were already on the streets below, rushing to wherever they needed to be. But we weren't rushing. We had time. "What do you want to do today?" she asked, curling her legs under her. "I don't care," I said honestly, "as long as I'm with you." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. "Me too," she said softly. And we stayed like that in the quiet morning light, just being together, knowing that whatever came next, we'd face it together.